Although this text might come off as religious, it is not. I'm reading it from a spiritual perspective. As you guys know, I focus more on spiritual health when dealing with MGTOW. So you can look at some of my other videos to understand where I'm coming from. Um, the 8 healths, and 7 of them are official. The 8th one is financial health, which is not really in there. Um, so I'll go ahead and I'll read this and then I'll explain later. So hopefully you'll follow it till the end of the video. Conditioned souls are devoted to the motherland in which they take their birth, but they do not know their father. The mother is not independent in producing children. Similarly, material nature cannot produce living creatures unless in contact with the Supreme Father. They're talking about God in this instance. It is the Father only who impregnates the mother with all energies for the sustenance and maintenance of all living beings, both moving and non-moving. So that may come off as religious. From a MGTOW's perspective, it can be religious, but from my perspective, it's a spiritual mindset to adopt. In modern times, there seem to be a lot of damn near that a woman don't need a man for nothing, including childbirth. It's like almost a silent coded message, which it's truly a lie. And this passage taken from the Srimad Bhagavatam it's an explanation to a verse, a text that's written within the book. So those of you who are interested in that, there are lots of translations of the Srimad Bhagavatam you can start reading. Especially those of you who are seeking a more spiritual journey while in MGTOW, kind of like what I'm doing. So here you see men are needed in relationships. If you take away all the spirituality and bring it down to the material nature, the modes of material nature that we live in, which I did another video on, so you could look that up, modes of material nature. So if you're in MGTOW and you've gone your own way for whatever reason, again, you have to be self-contained and be happy within yourself. You can't have an emptiness inside to even tackle. Well, you can, but it's difficult to tackle spiritual health when you're feeling empty inside. And a lot of times that emptiness comes from the fact that we don't remember who we are as spiritual beings, and we identify ourselves with the physical flesh, with the body, because the modes of material nature, which one of its primary job is for us to forget. It takes away our memory of who we truly are as spiritual beings, not as religious beings, but as spiritual beings. The energy that powers this body. And hopefully this video will allow you all enough to be curious enough to explore it and jump on your own spiritual journey, whatever path that might be, while in MGTOW. Now, for those of you who are not really interested in that spiritual aspect of things, the concept is still applicable in the other 7 healths, in that if you know yourself in the other 7 healths, your financial health, your emotional health, physical health, etc., etc., environmental health, sexual health, all those healths, you would find that when you see or get involved with a woman, you're able to know instinctually or intelligently that it'll take a significant amount of work to become in sync with that person. And even if it's like there's a physical attraction in the beginning that makes things a little easier, there's still that underlying message or understanding that there's nothing beyond the physical attraction, and that can leave temporary relationships, heartbreak, hurt, things like that. And even if you all make a go for it and try to make things work, after a while there's that division. It doesn't work. It's not. It's forced, and even coming in sync with one another can prove difficult and almost impossible. And then relationships fail and people go their own way. And a lot of times, a lot of our MGTOW guys tend to go our own way because we're coming from bad relationships without fully understanding the fact that we do not truly know ourselves, because the modes of material nature is there so we can forget who we are on a spiritual level. And most of the times we as individuals ignore spiritual health, confusing it with with religion. But spiritual health is really not religion. Now, it's a good place to start for guidance. If you're interested in spiritual health, it's a good place to start, because a lot of the connotations within religion is based on spiritual health, except a lot of times it's skewed and twisted in ways to get across a specific viewpoint. But these are things you have to take into account when using that approach. A lot of Eastern philosophies tend to give you an open-ended type, free-range type approach where you can really explore spirituality without the religious restraints. And I find myself more in line with that, and it's something you might want to consider when looking at spiritual health. One of the other things that I wanted to suggest, and this is not applicable to me as yet, I am not at that level, but this is what this other statement says: those who are serious about gaining release from material bondage or the modes of material nature should not entangle in the false relationship of family bondage. In other words, don't get married and have kids. And that's a tough one for a lot of us. A lot of men in MGTOW, even though you're in MGTOW, you go on your own way, still have that hope of getting involved in a successful relationship. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as you understand who you are. For instance, myself, I don't have a problem getting involved in a relationship or trying to be involved in a relationship, even though I'm completely happy being by myself. It's not out of my it's not something that I've completely ignored, because there are ways even within a relationship, marriage, family, where you can still go ahead and seek higher elevation of spirituality while still engaged in relationships. It just so happened in this particular passage where it says, you should not be entangled in false relationships or family bondage, where it's people, they try to deter you from that. It makes things easier, but again, a lot of times most of us are not able to do that, because for one reason or another. A lot of cases, that emptiness inside, we feel a lot of times we feel we need to be in a relationship to be happy or to be anything, and because of social acceptance or whatever it can be. But it's something to keep in mind when looking at relationships, especially in MGTOW. Is understanding that women does not give life, men do. And a lot of times we face a lot of situations today in modern society because fathers are not really involved in families anymore in a lot of cases. So that the major piece, the life-giving piece, is missing. So there's a false sense of things occurring, or a myth, things that is occurring that's a lie in many cases, or people are trying to build on a platform that's missing the foundation, and and it's working to some extent, but there's a fragility there. So those of you who are going your own way but you're still looking at these relationships, by all means, get to know yourself. If not on a spiritual level and you want to ignore that aspect based on what I've read and just want to focus on the other 7 healths, by all means do so. and you will still be able to tell if somebody is, if a relationship is just not going to work right off the bat, even even beyond the physical attraction, because a lot of times we as men just go for the physical attraction because we live in the mode of material nature, and that's what we see and engage in. But if you're able to look past that and look at the spiritual aspect of things, you might find yourself rejecting a lot of relationships and possibly finding one that's more compatible with where you are. And you might even find yourself involved in a relationship where the woman may not be where you are, but is willing to take that journey to where you are, um, to be more compatible. And that is a beautiful thing. Well, like, subscribe, ask questions in the comment section down below. You all have a good day.